So this past weekend, the Colorado Buffaloes fell to the UCLA Bruins in a hard-fought game that now sees Colorado sitting at a 4-4 season. And after the game, it didn't take Coach Prime long to address the media and say something that's taken college football by storm. And today, we need to talk about those comments. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. And considering we're talking about Coach Prime's comments regarding the offensive line, do you believe you can build a championship caliber offensive line via the transfer portal? Can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. We are less than 50 subscribers away from our 20,000 subscriber mark, and I would love for you to be a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, we're going to start with the comments that have taken college football by storm. And I quote, Coach Prime said, "The big picture, you go get new linemen." That's the picture, and I'm going to paint it perfectly. So Coach Prime is out here telling all of college football that he's about to do his best Pablo Picasso impersonation and paint an offensive line into existence, which gets us back to the question I asked in the intro to all of you. Do you believe you can build a championship caliber offensive line via the transfer portal? And understand, I don't ask this question as a rhetorical question or a loaded question. It's a genuine question. Because the existence of the transfer portal and its current capacities and the way coaches are able to utilize the transfer portal, it's still brand new. We are still learning the capabilities and what's possible via the transfer portal every single day, and Coach Prime has utilized the transfer portal as well as anybody in college football. And so I'm really excited to see how they're able to address these needs going into the portal. But there are some conversations we have to have regarding the use of the transfer portal specifically in going after offensive linemen, because we have to understand where the transfer portal windows lie. If you're going to go after an offensive lineman in the transfer portal, you should probably do it in the first window. And here's the reason. Because you need that guy to come in as soon as possible so that he can start working with your team and gelling with your other guys. Offensive line is a notoriously difficult position because of the time it takes to get your unit playing as a cohesive unit as opposed to a collection of individuals. That's one of the biggest and largest challenges with creating successful offensive lines in college football. Getting your unit to play as a unit as opposed to a collection of individuals. And the transfer portal certainly allows you access to college football players that have been able to successfully make the jump. You will undoubtedly have access to some of those guys. But one of the difficult things comes where you have got to go find guys that you can simultaneously still mold that will fit into your scheme. You can't just go blanket, get a bunch of guys out the transfer portal on the offensive line because they may not fit into your scheme, or they may have just come from a scheme where you're going to have to put in a lot of work having them transition from a different scheme to what you want to run. And if you're going to do that, that's all well and good. You probably should do it in the first window because it allows for people to come in. It allows for you to have the spring and the fall to gel. But we do know that the transfer portal is 2 windows. And the reason why the second window is important and needs to be talked about is because the second transfer portal window comes after spring practices, meaning if you were an offensive tackle who felt like after the season, I'm in line to be the starter next year, but after the spring, you're tackle number 2, that individual may be inclined to test the transfer portal and see if they can go be a starting tackle or a starting offensive lineman elsewhere. While that's fantastic, we once again run into the issue of that second window is in May. You now don't have the spring to gel and get cohesive with a unit. You have to do it on an accelerated clock. And understand, this is a problem when it comes to recruiting offensive linemen out of high school as well, that it can take a while for these guys to come in and gel. So this is just the fascinating part about building an offensive line. But utilizing the transfer portal undoubtedly does give you some advantages as opposed to recruiting high school guys. One of those advantages, you have a higher chance of that guy being someone who made a successful jump from high school football to college football. If you know an offensive lineman has been successful in college, you don't have to guess. Whereas you can watch a kid out of high school who looks like he is going to be fantastic, there's still some guessing going. So the transfer portal absolutely provides benefits that are notable and benefits that we do need to talk about. But because of the windows of the transfer portal, I'm fascinated to see how Coach Prime and this staff are going to handle this. Now, understand this, once again, to call back to something I said earlier. These questions I ask, they're not rhetorical, they're not loaded. They're actually me thinking out loud, wondering how you can construct a championship caliber roster in the new era of college football, something Coach Prime has been boldly challenging, and it's worked out in his favor thus far, taking a team that was 1-11 and playing in the Pac-12 this year, where the Pac-12 is as good as it's been in a long time, and they've turned a lot of heads. I understand they're 4-4, but there is another quote Coach Prime gave that we have got to talk about, and that's that he said, "I'm accustomed to winning, and we will win. We will win. Just put your seatbelt on and hold on. We will win." You've got to see what could possibly happen with the team that we have. I mean, we only really got our butts kicked once, and that was Oregon. All the other games, you could see how we could have won those games. We could have done that. That's called hope in our book. That is exactly what I was talking about before the season started, and this is how we're going to finish the video, because Coach Prime just highlighted something that if you have been observant, if you have been someone who has frequented this channel, watched my Colorado content, you have heard me hint at. Before the season, Coach Prime was able to successfully generate hype. How do you maintain that hype? Especially if you're not winning 10 games. How do you maintain that hype? You give people something to believe in. Whenever you inherit a rebuild, you don't have to win 10 games initially. That's not realistic. You have to give something that people can believe in. You have got to give people hope. Coach Prime hit the nail on the head. Outside of the Oregon game, the only game where we can definitively say Colorado got their butts kicked in every facet of that game. They got their butts kicked. Every other game, there are sequences of that game where Colorado has came back. They've played well. The Stanford game is an unfortunate result of them playing well initially and then losing the game in the second half. But when we look at USC jumps out to an early lead. Colorado fights back. So at the very least, Coach Prime has been able to give just that hope. A reason you should believe in us and what we are doing. And if he can do that, which he has in my opinion, and a great way to see that is he just got a massive commitment for one of the most coveted prospects in all of high school football. You're giving people hope. At the end of the day, that's exactly what Coach Prime needed to do, give people hope. So I just wanted to talk about this because it highlights a question I've been asking since before Coach Prime was the head coach of Colorado. How successfully can you utilize the transfer portal in building championship rosters? And more specifically, how can you do so with the offensive line, especially with the transfer portal windows, different schemes out there? You have got to try and get someone that you can simultaneously still mold, but you know has made that transition. It's going to be fascinating, but if anybody could do it, it's Coach Prime. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments and let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.